Hey,
Hey, good morning, Dan. Dan Gutierrez.
good morning, Mr. Keller.
Good to
How are
see
you this
you.
morning?
I'm doing good. You?
I am experiencing what I'm determining or not determining is a feeling of certainty, and
Okay.
that's a new definition for me.
All right. Well, we can explore that a little bit. Before we do that, let me welcome our viewers to the Intentional Living Podcast. Marty Keller, Dan Gutierrez. Uh, in this podcast, we take a look at behaviors. We take a look at inner compulsions. We take a look at what it is that goes on in our inner world that sometimes shows up in our outer world and maybe seems at odds with what we think we should be doing, or uh, the just the whole idea of how do we create the world, the life that we really want. It's kind of what you were just talking about. And this particular podcast is takes a focus of Socrates' quote: "The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." And last couple times we've been talking about Lisa Feldman Barrett and her research into the physiology of emotion, the physiology of the psychology, and you were saying before we started the podcast that you had some continuous thoughts about that, and maybe we could start there with your latest ruminations on this information that you've been reading and listening to over the past month or so.
Cool. Um, yeah, one of the things that her research or her experience about what she discovered is that here in the Western culture, uh, for the last, I don't know, I can't remember how old or how long ago, but when I think some guy named Descartes, he said there,
16th
I think,
century.
yeah, therefore, what is it?
I think,
I,
therefore, I am.
yeah, there you go. Okay. So for quite a while, Western culture is deemed, the mind, um, the object that sits on my shoulders is the center of um, consciousness and personality, and it's true. But there's also been a perception that when we experience life, they're two separate things. Um, I think comes from my skull, and my feelings come from my body. And based on her research and what I've noticed about myself is that I have an experience, and I don't know if I've been programmed to see them as two different experiences, thinking and feeling and emotions as two different things. I'm going to say that I have. I don't know if that was taught or it's the physiology where that's how I perceive it happening, or somebody taught me that. But that's been the prevailing Western culture of how our experiences are perceived. And and during her research, she has some reference material about there are some cultures who do not experience uh, their reality as having emotions and thoughts. They see them as one continuous, seamless part of the experience. There is no separation from the thinking and your feeling. They're one continuous event. And uh, it was very enlightening to see that human beings don't all experience things the same way, and that was astonishing. So the universal theory was that all people, no matter where they come from, they have the ability to recognize facial expressions and deem them emotions. Um, we've had this experiment where people have pictures or images of people's faces, and they show them to people, and they ask them, "What is this man experiencing right now?" And what one of the pictures is somebody scowling, right? So I think based on her research, 39% of the time, people interpreted a scowling face as somebody being angry, and which leaves what 61% of the time they're wrong. So that's more than half the time. So the idea that we can read other people's emotions based on their facial expression has been a myth. People scowl because they're thinking. People scowl because they may have a bout of bad gas. And the idea that I can read your emotional state based on your facial expression has been proven wrong, which is good information. But I want to get back to the idea, kind of veered off there. Um, the idea that my perception that there is a separation between my thinking and my feeling, um, that can have consequences. If there's a separation between my thinking and feeling, I'm not considering my entire body, uh, physical or the organism as one unit. I'm seeing it separate. You wouldn't take the heart out of your body and you don't see the heart as separate from the body. It's part of it. And your brain is just another organ, except its job is different. Its function is different. So for me, the awareness that I can have, I can have my experience. I can have my thinking and my feeling as one experience rather than being separate. Gives me a different perspective on which one influences the other, which one's more valuable, which one should I rely on.
Which is the cart, which is the horse?
Yeah, right. And that can, for me, I mean, as up until recently, I've had that experience that, I can't definitely separate my organism, my everything that I am, but I break it down. I still go, that's thinking and that's feeling, and they're different from each other. And it's like, okay, so what is my feelings telling me? What is my thinking telling me? I found it very useful to go, I'm just having this experience. These two go together. That's like saying, in a car, the engine is separate from the tires. But without the tires, the car wouldn't roll. So the engine would be useless. I have to see the car as a complete unit to it to be a car. Each one is valuable, but they're not separate. And so I've been going down this road of trying to, figure out what's going on in my body, my emotions, and, in my thinking. And I'm challenging that now. And what that's doing for me is I see the system not as individual pieces. I see the system as a whole unit that's constantly influencing itself. The, uh, the thinking is influencing the feelings, and the feelings are influencing the thinkings, but it's not, they're all doing it seamlessly. It's not, I think, therefore I am. Uh, that's a creation. That's not an explanation of how the body or how the organism actually works. And that's given me some kind of it's changed my focus on how I perceive my reality. My emotions are not separate from my thinking. My brain's job is not to think. My brain's job is to run the body, become the project manager per se. Allocate, glucose and oxygen to make the body run, which is seamless. All right, I'm not aware of it. My brain, and getting back to previous podcast, is that my brain's job is to predict what bodily uh, functionality that it needs based on what it's perceiving. So my brain does that through sensory input, and the other tool that it has is that it goes off my past. My brain has this capacity, and it's trying to predict what it should predict my body to do, which means to allocate glucose and oxygen and predict what movement that I need to make based on what it thinks it's going to happen. Okay. And the good news is I have some control over that prediction. I can create new information for my brain to use to modify its prediction model. I can't change the sensory information from the present moment, but I can change what happens when I perceive these things. I have some input. So this morning, I was talking with John this morning, and I was having an experience, and I'm in the dialogue, what I used to label fear and anxiety. When you say fear and anxiety, your brain draws from the past. Not only does it draw from that past, but it predicts what experience I'm going to have when I just say those words. And what I've done, not unique to me. It's not like uh, what I did in the moment is I changed what I was experiencing and what I was expanded my vocabulary instead of fear and anxiety. I decided to label what I was experiencing was uncertainty. And when I said the word uncertainty, that's different from fear and anxiety because there's a narrative between when I say fear and anxiety. That's linked to past experiences, past uh, past history, and that was just profound. I've changed in that moment. I changed my perception, and changing my perception changed my reality in the moment. And it's like, wow, uncertainty is different than fear and anxiety and trauma. So now I can, if I'm experiencing uncertainty, what do I need to do if I want to change that? To uh, uncertainty. Well, how do I need more information so I can make a bit different choices to alleviate maybe that experience of uncertainty. And that's powerful. I'm using my mind now to support what it is that I really want. And my the human organism is designed to maintain homeostasis, which means a state of where my body and mind can rest, grow, and rejuvenate. And now I have access to that consciously. And I just think it's interesting that the results of what I'm doing is to put me in a state of homeostasis where I can rest, rejuvenate, and grow and heal. And that's exactly what um, my body is does by itself. But now I'm a participant in creating the creating the environment or a new experience to put me in there, put me move me toward that on a conscious level. And man, that's really exciting. Well, for me, right? I now have act. I am now I am now an actor on the stage rather than a reactor. I'm being proactive instead of. I'm no longer being the victim of my circumstance. That's one way to put it. I still experience these things, maybe this discomfort or uncertainty, um, but now I have a means or I have a process to put me back into the state where I feel safe. My heart rate is lower. Um, my brain can actually tend to um, healing the body, focus back on what it's supposed to be doing, which in turn changes my mood. Well, how do I do that? I sleep better. If I sleep better, I get more rest. My body feels different. My perception of how it feels. Everybody knows what getting a good night's sleep feels like. I wake up, I feel refreshed. My view on the world is probably different than when I'm tired, which it is. If I eat well and I stay hydrated, things are better for me. I have the energy, I have the nutrients to run my body so it can heal itself. And yeah, to me, that's what that all this information that I'm discovering is like, how do I, how can I consciously um, have these experiences I'm having, and then turn those experiences to my benefit? You know, we always talk about feel the feelings. There's wisdom in your feelings. That's me developing a relationship with my the organism, puts me in the present moment so I can create a new direction to give me what I want. And usually, and what I'm discovering, you know, what it is I want is a bodily state. My perception of uh, tranquility, calmness, safety, and I find that that's what I've been doing. I'm doing now that I have a greater vocabulary, um, and I understand why I have been in the past repeating the same things over and over because I haven't had any new experiences to change the information my brain has been using to predict what it's perceiving. I don't know. I just find that mind-boggling to be able to have that awareness. Um,
You know, it's it's fascinating that you are raising it in the way that you are because that is this question of the unity of the mind and the body has been the focus of our gut check meeting for the last couple of years. And that meeting has a focus mostly on physical health. So the question is, what's the relationship between my thinking and my physical health? And the inquiry in that meeting is, can I use the accountability tree as a way to generate healing in my body? So, for example, if I have lower back pain, can I do what we do in the accountability tree? Can I feel the feeling? Can I put my focus on my lower back, sit there with the feeling, and then ask myself, what do I want? And it's interesting. Oftentimes, people have a hard time coming up with an answer to that question, what do I want? Um, but we work through it, and people get to, I want to feel strong. I want to feel at ease. And then obviously set an intention. And in the beginning, we talked about the fact that our challenge is the one that you identified at the top of the podcast, which is we have this historical and cultural tendency to split body and mind, to see feeling and thinking as separate activities, and we don't even intuitively necessarily see them as allies. And so the inquiry in the gut check meeting is, how can I generate body mind alliance at the level of consciousness, which is what you're talking about? How do I do this consciously? Obviously, the body and the mind are already one thing. They were one thing at conception. But the human being, the way we develop, we often are, or as you've pointed out, particularly in modern culture, we have generated the collective belief that these are two separate things. I think, therefore I am is interesting. When you were saying that earlier, it occurred to me that perhaps we should flip that and say, I am, therefore I think, feel, and intuit might be a more accurate way to describe this organism, as you referred to us.
Yeah, it's interesting that I'm struggling for the vocabulary
Yeah,
to what yeah, what do you call the combination of the mind body? And what do you call it?
exactly.
A human being? I mean that well, yeah, you're well read and everything else. It's I mean, even people with degrees, they call it the mind body. There isn't one word. It's a the combination of the two.
Right.
I just that's just like yeah. It's like okay. I don't know. I'm just yeah amazed that we don't have okay. There may be a word, but I'm not aware of it at the present moment, other than organism and human being. That if you say those things, a human being, that doesn't do it either. Organism is the entire thing, human organism.
Well,
But
it occurs to me that maybe we start out by just creating the intention to develop a single understanding. Um, and the dialogue helps. And as we create the psychological or mental space to consider the matter, and of course, there's our brain. Our thinking is going to be part of that. Um, Maybe we as the power of intention allows us to do, we just encourage the generation of something new by through the
right,
question, just asking the question. We've been, I mean, in the gut check meeting's been going on for 2 years now, and we still haven't come up with an answer in that setting, but that's our focus. There's only one thing going on, and I think this is what I wanted to. I had a couple notes here. I wanted to get your thoughts on um, the the whole question that you raised at the beginning about the cultural tendency to divide body, mind, thinking, feeling. What impact does childhood trauma have on that? Because it seems to me that part of the challenge that we have is that um, the emotional defenses that we create in childhood against the traumatic experiences that most of us have are the direction given to the mind as it develops out of the emotional body. So there is no mental body until about 4 or 5 years old. And so when the thinking does finally start, it's already being given direction by the emotions. And the emotional experience that we have is one of defense. So that means keeping out certain things. And so almost from the beginning, the mind is trained by the emotional body to run the world for that safety that you were talking about. And we talked about this in a couple other podcasts about how to generate safety, how to generate a sense of security, how to generate a sense of um, well being. And so it just occurs to me that part of the challenge with this thinking feeling split comes from childhood trauma and the determination of a little human being to stay safe, even if it means something that seems to an adult twisted or bizarre or counterintuitive.
Uh, okay. I'll agree with that. And I also believe that our brains aren't we don't come out but we're not born as having miniature human adult brains. Our environment
Oh,
uh, we need to have stimulation from the environment to fully wire our brains to our reality, our culture. Um, I
yeah,
do
and
believe I
it's interactive,
right. I the brain has to have stimulation to grow. If you're born, your optic, your eyes um, have to have light to fully wire the system for sight and hearing, all your senses. They need stimulation to, so your brain actually finishes developing those
right?
circuits.
Yep.
And I've been paying attention to people who have young children now, and there's difference in parenting. Um, uh, yeah, a friend of mine now, she's raising a young girl, and she's conscious of these things based on her life experience and her profession. She understands that she can nurture or she can develop these circuits of emotional regulation, right? I never got that as a child. I didn't get any of the how to regulate my emotions. Um, that wasn't taught to me through
Well,
interaction between a parent.
well, to be accurate, we all were taught a certain way of making that happen. That may or may not be optimum.
Right. For those parts of my brain to develop, to
Right.
grow in. So if that doesn't that's similar to if you blindfold a child at birth and you don't expose them to light, their eyes won't develop.
Yep.
Their sight, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So that part of my brain needs to be stimulated so I can develop the ability to regulate myself, to stay in a situation where I can, I don't know any of this as a child, but this is where my caregiver comes in, right? They can develop those programs. They can develop a sense of safety. Uh, so I will those circuits develop that I can go explore and see my world. And then when I get frightened, I have a safe place to come home to, or a safe spot to come back to. So it makes it easy for me to explore, right? So I am curious about the world. The world is not an evil or scary place, and if it is, I've learned that I can come back and I can be protected. So um, that part of me develops. But I'm watching these children, and the things that are striking for me is that these parents are nurturing those aspects. They're not telling the child they're wrong, right? Um, they're not demeaning the child. Um, they're letting the child experience the world, and 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 they're just being safe to allow the child to experience these things. Um, and the results, even at 1 or 2 years old, is phenomenal. The child is getting that nurturing, so when it grows up, it has a capacity like resilient. You know, it's not it's not afraid of a challenge. It's not afraid of something new. It's curious, and it
Right,
has it has it has that program, or it has that programming in itself, that it understands that this is not dangerous.
right.
Um, you can do this. Confidence, resilience, safety.
Well, and you know
Um,
that in alignment with our theme today, that kid should have a more intuitive sense of the unity of the body and the mind.
yes,
That there was no wedge driven by that parenting. That parenting actually did the opposite.
right.
To Because if I feel safe in the world, I'm going to feel safe to use my organism in the most appropriate possible way, and then ultimately develop the conscious um, direction of my life, which includes my physical as well as my emotional and intellectual states.
So,
Fascinating, fascinating.
well, the the where I was going with this is that if we have or a more positive or a more inclusive nurturing, uh, versus the you're told that you don't feel this way. It's wrong. Don't express your emotions. Your emotions lie to you. Rely on your thinking,
Right, exactly.
and it explains why the organism or the child that grows up where it doesn't trust itself. It doesn't know what's real. It can't
Exactly.
rely it can't rely on itself to make assessments about what's really happening. And that's trauma.
Yep.
Um,
And
so
then
yeah,
the mind will
I
develop the capacity to block out certain feelings.
because they're not helpful.
Exactly. Or they're frightening.
They lied to you.
Right.
But I have them, so I can't trust myself. That's that explains things
Yep.
to an extent, but not
Yeah.
completely. So,
Well,
but
that's
anyway,
the as we come to the end of our time together on this, that again, it's just another aspect for those of you who are maybe new to this intentional living work. That's what we do here is we're seeking to understand ourselves better and better every day. And how many years have we been doing this, Dan? 15
a
years or
while,
so. Um, and we're still learning. There's
absolutely.
The human being each of us is a universe of information and desire. And again, for me, I've stuck with this process because I haven't discovered anything else as powerful as intentional living.
Correct.
Um,
I agree with that.
so for those of you who are interested in the process, we do this work in group, and there are 4 group meetings a week, all of them on Zoom, anywhere between an hour and 2 hour in duration. You can come and stay as long as you want. And information on the times, days, and the Zoom addresses of these meetings will be at the end of the podcast. So please feel free to join us, check it out, and come and join Dan and me and John Donovan and all of our colleagues in exploring this great universe that each of us is. And with that, Dan, any final thoughts, comments?
I intend to create. Uh, I intend to increase my capacity for curiosity.
All right. Well, thanks for your time today. We appreciate it, and look forward to the
Thank
next one.
you for having me.
Oh, of course.
All right.
See ya.